Okay, each of you should have out your notes packet and be opened up to topic 14-4, Factoring Polynomials, Day 3. I need you to please pay attention and be quiet while you listen to this recording so that your classmates are able to catch what's going on. Okay, I will get through it as quickly as I can, but I do need you to be quiet and being good listeners. We are doing essentially the same thing that we have been doing all week. The differences today are the steps are not written out for you on the paper. You're going to have to come up with that on your own. Followed by some of them are a little bit different examples. Okay, so we'll talk about the special cases as they come. So let's remind ourselves what the steps for factoring are. Again, everybody should have their notes packet and something to write with. The first step is to find the GCF. Okay, we're going to factor out the GCF. This is where we put the GCF on the outside of the parentheses, and once we've divided, you put what's left in the inside of the parentheses. Okay, step 2, then you find the sum and product based on what was left inside the parentheses. Remember that the sum is the middle term, including the sign. The product is the last term, including the sign. Then you use your calculator to find the factors. The factors are the two, the magic numbers where they add to equal the sum and multiply to equal the product. This is the ones where you do y1 is product divided by x, including the sign. Y2 is parentheses, product divided by x plus x. And then when you go to your table, you look for the sum in the Y2 column, and the two numbers next to it are your magic numbers. Then the last step is to fill in the parentheses with your factors. Parentheses, there we go. Okay, so let's get going. Number 1, factor completely. Is there a GCF? Yes, there is. Okay, we can factor out a 3. So that leaves me with y squared minus 13y minus 30. I took each of the original numbers and I divided the 3 out of it. So the GCF was 3. Step 2, find the sum and the product. The sum is the middle term, including the sign. The product is the last term, including the sign. So then you're going to go and put those on y1 and y2. So for this one problem, I'm going to remind you how to put this on the calculator. On y1, you're going to do negative 30 divided by x. On y2, you're going to do parentheses negative 30 divided by x plus x. You're going to go look at your table. You are looking for a negative 13 in the y2 column. And what you should find is that you have 2 and negative 15. Those add to negative 13 and they multiply to negative 30. So those are your two factors. And you simply put those in the parentheses. So this is where you must be careful with that GCF. You already have a 3 on the outside, and now you're going to do y plus 2, y minus 15. So this is going to be your final answer. The 3 on the outside, you cannot forget that. And then y plus 2, y minus 15. Okay, I'm going to go a little more quickly on these next ones because I want you to have plenty of time to get to your assignment. But I am expecting that you're going to be able to plug them into the calculator and things like that. If you need help, once the video is over, you may ask each other for calculator help and things like that. So the first step, there is no GCF. Okay, next step, your sum and your product. Sum is -3, product is +2. You're going to put that on the calculator. 2 divided by x, 2 divided by x plus x. You're going to look for -3 in the y2 column, and your two numbers are going to be -2 and -1. So you write those as your final answer, x minus 2 times x minus 1. I either need you to box it or I need you to put the answer up on the line. Okay, number 3. Is there a GCF? Yes. Okay, the GCF is 2. Divide that out and you are left with x squared minus 49. Some of you yesterday, we talked about a shortcut for this. If you don't get it, that's okay. Your sum is the middle term. There is not a middle term. Your sum is 0. The product is the last term, -49. The two numbers that add to 0 and multiply to -49 are, the only way they can add to 0 is if they're the same number, but with different signs. Okay, so it's 7 and -7. So my final answer, bring down that GCF, and then we have x plus 7 in one parentheses and x minus 7 in the other parentheses. If this feels like it's going a little too fast, you can ask the substitute very respectfully to pause the video and kind of have a little bit of conversation with a friend if needed about the math. Number 4, GCF is my first step. My GCF is 3. We can see that. Divide everything by 3. And you're left with c squared minus 2c plus 5. So my sum is -2. My product is 5. What happens on this one is interesting because remember you're putting in y1, 5 divided by x, y2, 5 divided by x plus x. Okay, when you go and look at your chart, some of you are probably going, I don't see it. There is nothing. This does not happen. Okay, think about it. The only factors of 5 are 1 and 5. It's a prime number. So there's no way to have 1 and 5 add together to give you a -2. Okay, so what happens here is there are no factors. Listen carefully because this gets a little tricky. There are no factors. However, we did change this problem from its original version. We did pull out a greatest common factor. Okay, when you get to where you've got your 3 terms and you can't factor any further, you just go back to where you started with the GCF. Okay, so the greatest common factor is 3. We still can pull that out. And then just leave the c squared minus 2c plus 5. So this is your final answer, and that's okay. Every once in a while that happens. Okay, so if you get to something and you're certain you've typed it in correctly and there's no factors, then you just leave it as it was before. Okay, number 5, GCF. 2, divide that out. So you have y. Oh, look. Oh, looky here. Our GCF is 2y. They all have a y. If anybody caught that, make sure y'all tell me tomorrow. I'll give an extra stamp for that. 2y. What caught my eye was I saw that y cubed. Okay, so when I do 2y cubed divided by 2y, I'm left with 1y squared. 16y squared divided by 2y leaves me with plus 8y. And 14y divided by 2y leaves me with just 7. So now it's what we're used to looking at. Okay, so I pulled 2 and y out of there. Okay, next thing, my sum is 8. My product is 7. I hope that y'all don't even have to type this on the calculator. Two numbers that multiply to equal 7 and add to equal 8. That would be 7 and 1. Okay, so my factors are y plus 7 and y plus 1. But remember that GCF has to come join us. So my final answer is 2y on the outside, y plus 7 times y plus 1. You should feel like a big kid. This is like big kid math. Okay, next one. GCF. There isn't one. So then we go to our sum and our product. Sum, there's not a middle term, it's 0. Product is negative 36. The two numbers that add to 0 and multiply to negative 36 are positive and negative 6. So your final answer is y plus 6 times y minus 6. Hopefully you will get that fast at it. Number 7, greatest common factor, 4. When you divide that 4 out, you're left with a squared plus 4. Sum, 0. Product, 4. There are no numbers that will add to 0 and multiply to positive 4. Okay, so there are no factors. Remember what we talked about the last time. If there are no factors, you go back to step 1 where you pulled out a GCF, and that is your answer. Number 8, GCF is 12. When you divide the 12 out, you're left with y squared minus 12. Again, your sum is 0 and your product is negative 12. Since 12 is not a perfect square, again, there are going to be no factors that meet that criteria. So we go back to this. Number 9, GCF, 4. When I divide 4 from everything, I'm left with x squared plus 5x minus 6. Sum is 5. Product is negative 6. I need two numbers that add to equal positive 5 and multiply to equal negative 6. When you put that on your calculator, you will ultimately find that it's positive 6 and negative 1. So put that into the parentheses, step 4, x plus 6, x minus 1. Please remember to bring your GCF down. Okay, if you leave that 4 off, you changed the value. Okay. And the last one, GCF is always our first step. It's 10. And we have n squared plus 10. Okay, when I divide that out. Sum is 0. Product is 10. Trying to think of factors that add to 0 but multiply to 10, that doesn't exist. So there are no factors. So by now you should be saying, oh yeah, okay, when there's no factors, I go back up to my GCF. And that's my final answer. Okay, hopefully you were all able to stay quiet. If something felt too fast, as soon as I'm done talking on this video, that would be the time to politely ask a classmate for help, okay? I'm going to have the substitute hand you out the assignment. you should have about 30 to 40, not 40, about 30 minutes or so that you can be working on this. Do not waste your time. You can finish the assignment and you can hand it in before class is over. Do not waste time, please. Okay, you may work together quietly on this. And I'm going to ask that the substitute take good notes about who's working versus who's not. Okay, and maybe I'll reward some stamps for people who get good reports and things. Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow where we will continue working on this. Have a great afternoon.